Mr. Moorhead coming to you live on a rainy night from Garner, North Carolina, and the beautiful Moorhead Studios located near the campus of Cleveland Middle School. Today we are moving on to a new group of kings and queens, and we're changing countries. We're going to talk about Louis the 14th. Louis the 14th. He is French, and he is part of the Bourbon dynasty. Now, I am going to give you a chance to learn these Roman numerals pretty easily. So I'm going to help you with this. X is going to be 10. I don't have an easy way to remember that. But IV, I can help you. We had a pandemic once before. It was called the swine flu. And a lot of people got it. And unfortunately, I was one of the people who got the swine flu. Ended up having to go to the hospital over it. But the day that it hit me, I was actually at school. I got really warm on the inside, super warm. And it's like my head shut off. And then I just felt so crazy weak. Like I couldn't even get up. And I kind of look like this, if you can see me in the little window at the top. So anyway, I said something I've never said in my 20-year teaching career. I told the kids, guys, just find something to work on. I'm not even going to teach today. Just find something to work on. And the kids are going all crazy, swinging off the lights and stuff. I just didn't have any energy or strength, and I felt horrible. And I remember hearing a little girl that was sitting near me. She was talking to her friend, and they were both looking at me, and here I am like this. And she says, "He looks like he's dead." At that point, I knew I had to get like a substitute because I rarely ever miss. So, point of the story, I actually had to go to the hospital over this, and they put an IV into my forearm to give me fluid and food. So IV and forearm. IV means four. So think of the hospital. They put the IV in the forearm. XIV is 14th. 14th. So Louis the 14th, and he is from the Bourbon dynasty. All right, we're going to keep going. So what I expect you to do today, you need to be able to tell me, where's he the ruler? I already told you it is France. It is France. What is the name of his dynasty? I already told you that too. It's the Bourbon dynasty. Now, how does Louis the 14th change the king's position in French society? And then what did this guy accomplish? Here is Louis right here. And I know the ladies, when they take these pictures, they put their legs out, just like Louis here has it. Girls, he was doing this 300 or 400 years before you ever thought of it. Look how he's got that leg out. He's like, look at me. Look at me, I'm fancy pants. I'm Mr. Fancy Pants. So this is our guy, Louis, all right? Now, Louis has an interesting story in that his parents, he is the 14th, dad is the 13th, they didn't think they'd be able to have kids. They were married for 23 years. They were in what we would consider advanced age for having childbirth. And sure enough, she's pregnant. They had a kid. They actually have two of them. So they have Louis and his brother late in life. In fact, it's 4 years. There it is on the screen. Just 4 years after he was born, Louis the 13th died. Okay, so his dad died 4 years after he was born. Now, a regency is going to be set up. We've talked about regency a bunch. This is where a group of people rule on behalf of someone until they're old enough. Okay, because Louis, the future king, he's 4. He's a prince. He's 4. Dad dies. He becomes the king. 4-year-old, probably not going to be a good king. Part of this regency was his mom. Part of this regency was his mom, the queen. And that's kind of key because she starts to push this idea of absolutism. And you will see Louis completely carry it out. Now, it wasn't until recently in history, I would say 1930-ish, that the opera fell in popularity. Okay, lots of people went to the opera because the opera tells a story, especially in European culture. It tells famous historical stories. It was an important form of entertainment, and especially for Louis, he loved to go to the opera. Now, these people are not much different than us. A lot of kids are fascinated with like Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief because it's these stories of gods and goddesses. Louis is the same way. He loved the story of God and gods and goddesses, and his favorite is Apollo, the sun god. You will see him even take the title of the Sun King. So remember that as his nickname. Louis XIV is the Sun King, and this is a great, great title for him because you are going to see him bring absolutism to France. French kings were never really powerful. They had a class of people called nobles, and these people had a ton of power and influence over the king. So if the king said something and the nobles didn't like it, the king is going to be pretty quick to change his opinion. Louis is going to do away with that, and I'm going to show you how he does it. First off, Louis as king is going to get rid of his minister. The minister is almost like a vice president. He shares some power with the king, some influence with the king. Louis gets rid of this person. There's first step toward absolutism. Like he doesn't have this almost co-ruler, if you will. The next thing, he's going to say, hey, this divine right thing that is going on over in Scotland, me likey. He says, hey, God put me here as well. Now he has to deal with this nobility, and here is how he does it. If you go to the Bojangles, the little Bojangles, and you get some sort of a chicken plate, and you get a soda, okay? I believe they sell Coke there. We'll call it Coke, all right? So you get a Coca-Cola, and you have ice in the Coca-Cola, and you don't drink it for a while, and that drink melts. The ice melts into the drink. When you go to taste it, you probably make this face because it doesn't taste like soda. It doesn't taste like water, and it doesn't taste like soda. It's a mixture of the two. It's watered down. We're going to have Louis get rid of these nobles by simply watering them down. So take a look at this. He says if somebody wants to become a noble, and the way that you would normally do it back then is your ancestors are nobles. So if my dad is a lord or a duke or a baron, or my mom is a baroness or a lady, if we have any of these titles, those titles would pass to me, okay? But that doesn't mean these people are necessarily wealthy or that they have tons of things. It's heredity. They've received these titles from their family. Now, what you see happen is Louis approaches the wealthy of France, which are not always nobles. And he says, hey, if you guys would like to be nobles, you can buy this nobility. It's a huge fee, but there's a big benefit. These people never have to pay taxes again. If somebody said, Mr. Moorhead, you can pay $50,000 and never pay taxes ever again, that would seem like a lot to begin with, but oh my gosh, it would not take but just a handful of years for me to make this money back, okay? So you have a lot of wealthy people in France jump on this because they don't have to pay taxes anymore, and they're paying the majority of taxes. So they buy this nobility. By having not only nobles by birth, but people who have bought nobility, this is like the ice in the cup melting. Like the nobles aren't as powerful because there's so many of them. There's tons of them. So if one group of nobles say, hey, king, we want you to make this decision, there's probably just as many nobles that say, oh, we don't care, we want a different decision. He makes so many nobles that it waters it down. Think back to our drink. It doesn't taste like water, and it doesn't taste like soda. Now, robe nobles are the ones that he sold. I think of the B in robe for bought. They bought their nobility. The sword nobles are born that way. I think of the R in sword and born. Got the R in there, okay? Now, by creating these nobles, again, they lose power. Now we're going to see Louis move into this absolute position. L'état, c'est moi. My French is awful, but I think that's pretty close. This is the saying he had. I am the state, meaning I am the government. Didn't really see French kings talk like that. He's saying, I am it. There are two or three other sayings he had. He is saying that he is the ruler. They've got one ruler. They don't have a minister. They don't have a noble class ruling. It's him. He is the law, and that they have one faith. Louis was Catholic. His family, his ancestors, his father, they tended to be very patient with Protestants. He's saying, hey, if you're in France, you are Catholic now. You can change or you can leave. All of this is examples, or all of these are examples of absolutism. He gets rid of this nobility class by watering them down. He is in charge. And here is where we see him accomplish a lot. He's going to build this palace. It's the Palace of Versailles. I always have kids pronounce that Versailles. That's silly, kids. It's not Versailles, it's Versailles. This palace is so large, it's difficult to get a ground picture of the whole thing without backing up and backing up and backing up. In history, it's one of the largest palaces up until recently. So you've got this massive palace that he builds. Next, he is going to send out explorers everywhere. Louis XIV, Louisiana. Louisiana is named after this guy. His explorers go into Canada, and they work their way down through all kinds of rivers, including the Mississippi. That's why if you go to Louisiana, New Orleans, the capital, Orleans is a French city. New Orleans is the new French city. New Orleans has Bourbon Street. That's where Mardi Gras is, okay? And if you see, all of these are French-sounding words. So Bourbon Street, that's the name of his dynasty. If you go up the Mississippi, you will see French names everywhere, including St. Louis, all right, Louisville, Kentucky, which branches off on another river. We see French names all over the place, and it's either him or named after his family members. So we see this huge influence from all of his explorers going everywhere. We also see that he sponsors writers, and he sponsors musicians. I haven't really seen that a bunch. He is very interested in music. Now, one of the things, let's see if I can get down here back to my presentation. One of the things that you will notice, if we go back to this picture, you see this symbol. Remember, royal families in Europe tend to have a symbol. My family's symbol was the deer antlers. We had the Tudors with the rose. Here you see this called the fleur de lis, all right? Flower of the lily is the rough translation. But if you watch, look at the New Orleans Saints, the football team. That is the logo on their helmet. It is the symbol of the Bourbon family. Now, I always have some kid, and I'm like, how'd you know that? They're like, Mr. Moorhead, there's a drink named Bourbon. Is that named after this guy? It actually is. That comes from a place in Kentucky where the county is called Bourbon. It's named after the family. I suppose the drink comes from there. And the capital of the county, or county seat, I should say, is Paris, Kentucky. That is no coincidence. It's because his explorers went all through those areas, okay? So if we go back to accomplishments, we have the French colonies, we have Louisiana, we have this palace. He will make France the most powerful continental, this is hooked to the continent, country in Europe, okay? So we have the expulsion of the Protestants, and he reigns 72 years, the longest reign of a modern European monarch, all right? So take care, and bye for